Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another great episode of the Legacy Builder Club. You know, Legacy Builder Club is financial literacy as far as in real estate,
Mhm.
mergers, acquisition, and just straight investing. So today we have a rock star, Miss Tracy Gunn. Tracy, I know we were talking backstage, but let the world know what are you into right now?
Mhm.
Kind of where did you come from, where you are now, and what you envision to do as far as your Mount Everest in the future.
Amazing. Okay, so I've owned businesses for 18 years, mostly candy stores, but I also had restaurants. So at one point, my highest point, I had four businesses all running the same time. And
Okay.
so my daughter had a grandbaby, my first, and now I have two. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Like it just like that, you can change your mind. And I was like, I'll just sell, right? Like most people think, oh, I'll just sell, no big deal. And again, it's hard to like show your books and show, your ugly baby basically. It was like, oh, like this is my don't pay attention to what's behind the curtain kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, again, we're usually entrepreneurs who are in the businesses, so it's not perfect. Neither are corporations, which I learned later. But anyway, so I hired a broker and I was like, help me sell. And so he sat down, he went through all the businesses and he was like, listen, Tracy, don't bother. Just liquidate everything. And I was like, what? So I was
Oh, my
doing over a
goodness.
million in sales between the two restaurants. And then my candy stores were doing like a little, they were like doing a third of a million. So like 300 plus, right? And I'm like, what? There's customers. I mean, this is not like, I had 42 staff. It's not like I'm not, it's not like I'm cooking and waiting on tables. Like what? And so he just said it's not worth it. And so, after I had a crying moment, I thought, you know what? Maybe he's right, but maybe he's wrong. And what can
Yeah.
I do about it? Right. So that's kind of how I wound up where I am. So you asked where I am. We can go back to that part, but I'm in Charlotte where my grandbabies are. I'm
Okay.
actually building a candy store, like a mini chain here with the intent. It's kind of like a case study proving that I could start over from scratch, but as long as I know what I'm building for and what the purpose is, right, where I'm going, that
Hmm.
I could exit in 2 years for 5x. So that's kind of like my case study to show that no matter what the broker says, no matter what state your business is in, that there are things you can do to make it sellable. That's kind of like my passion project. And that's kind of what I did for myself, right? So
Yeah.
my big restaurant, I figured out what I needed to do. I fixed some things and I found a buyer in 3 months. Now the broker had said don't bother, and yet I was able to find somebody who wanted it. So they're not always right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and then yeah, they're not always right, especially once you kind of knowing, like you said, that's your baby. So once it's your baby, you're like, hold up, it's kind of hard to kind of let it go. So let me actually see what I can do because the growth that you said you had was some good. It was some good numbers, and depending on what your EBITDA. So what
Yeah.
was the EBITDA on that? So I believe you said it's like
Well,
what 1.3
so it was
million
like
combined.
it was definitely based on SDE and it wasn't
Mhm.
super profitable, but like let's be honest, most brokers are looking for an easy sell. They're
Yeah.
looking for something that's going to be easy for them to offload, that's not going to be complicated. Restaurants are a pain in the neck. They're not very profitable usually because the margins are so slim. And he was just looking for something easy, right? And so the reality is that when I look back and I think I'm pretty smart, right? I was
Hmm.
running 4 businesses. I built them all from scratch. That why didn't I think about, like, in my head I thought someday I'm going to sell. Like most business
Yeah.
owners, right? They think someday it'll pay me back, right? It might
That's
not
gonna
be
be the
paying
purpose of
me. Mhm. But yet I didn't build with that in mind. I didn't think about it. I didn't plan for it. I didn't understand what made it valuable or even how to value your business. Like I'm sure with your M&A stuff, like most business owners don't even know what their business is worth
Man, we
or
get into
how
the
to
book
figure it
and all that
out,
stuff. Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's like yeah, stuff will be
Well,
all
they
over the
think
place
it's
pretty much.
worth things because they have a brand or they have a name or they have, because they've had it for 40 years that it's worth something, but it's not usually, right? You have to have something of substance. And so for me, I thought, gosh, I'm pretty driven, I'm pretty smart, and yet I didn't know this. and why didn't I know this? Like, why didn't I think about it? And so that kind of spawned my like passion project, which is to educate small business owners to prepare. Because you know
Yeah.
what? If I could have listened to him and just liquidated, and that business would have just disappeared from the world. But instead, I tried to figure out what was I missing, right? I did some basic things. I wasn't working, 100 hours a day on it, but I was
Yeah.
able to solidify some things to make it more attractive once I figured out who my buyer was going to be. And again, it's just a different focus, right? Most owners that I know, again, 18 years, my ex-husband owned a business too. Like I've been around ownership for a long time. The
Hmm.
reality is most owners are thinking about more. They're not thinking about more what. They're just anything that's going to make it flip, whatever the tipping point is, and make it more profitable, make it work better, make it easier. They're always looking for more, but they're very, very rarely looking at the finish line and trying to work it backwards to get
Backwards,
there.
yeah, yeah, to kind of get to there. Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
yeah, makes sense. So that's what you actually do with potential sellers right now. You actually
Hmm. Yeah.
say, okay, you want to exit this business in a couple years for maybe 20, maybe $30 million. So let's look at the 20, 30 million and
Yeah.
work backwards and reverse and try
Right.
and kind of formulate a formula to actually get you to the end
Like a
result.
roadmap, really. It's like, okay, and let's say, I mean, and let's be honest, most people who are going to sell for 20 million, there's plenty
Hmm.
of brokers who are willing to work with them and help them.
Hmm.
But 92% of small business owners never get to a million in revenue, which means
Yeah, I heard.
most of their businesses are worth 100, 200 tops.
Mm.
And so for 40 years, right? Then you can add on, real estate and equipment and fixtures and inventory on top
Yeah,
of that.
yeah,
So the
SD.
rea- so the reality is 92% of the businesses in this country are not worth even $1 million.
Mm.
So who works with those? And that's kind of my sweet spot.
Oh, that's a sweet
Because
spot. Okay, yeah,
because the thing is the other ones are easy and probably more fun to see, right? They have the assets, they have the the money behind them and the systems to be able to scale it. Except I feel like 92%, let's just say, of the
hmm,
businesses in this country who are the ones who mostly employ most of this country,
basically,
um,
yeah,
they are needed. Whether or not they're profitable or really profitable, they're necessary for our economy. They're necessary for our downtowns, for our main streets, for whatever we're doing, right? Think about like a plumber. Don't we need him,
yeah,
right?
heck yeah, yeah. Plumber,
Could you get
electrician,
one?
HVAC. Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Can you get one to come to your house? Probably not, right? How long do you have to wait? Right? There's all these are like the backbone of our country and our economy, I feel. And so we are trying to like reach out to those people to be able to say, listen, the end is coming. You haven't planned at all. It's not a wash. Like you can do some things. There's time. And so for me, it was 3 months.
Yeah.
My goal here in Charlotte is to open 10 stores and one distribution center in 2 years and be able to exit for 5 million. My intention is right for 5x and have a million in cash
And
flow.
even,
So,
yeah,
but
yep.
in profit. And so, but like that's a very intentional plan. I have it all laid out, how I'm going to get there, why I'm going to get there, where I am, all based on numbers. It's very strategic based on everything that I've known for 18 years. And to be honest, I picked up and moved to a whole new city where I don't know anybody, I don't know the culture, I don't have people to help me per se. My daughter's here, my grandkids are here, but I'm trying to prove that it can be done if you plan
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. I mean, you figure you're a champion. Like even looking at my backdrop, I mean, I'm from Baltimore. I did the same thing when I moved to LA. I didn't know a soul over here. I
Mhm.
moved here like maybe a good like 14 years ago. I was in Baltimore doing fix and flip, doing buy and hold. And once I got out here and I realized it was in real estate investing, everybody needs money. So 7 years ago, I was like, hold up. I told my wife she was my realtor. I'm doing fix and flip. I said, everybody need money, so let's open up a mortgage company. And that's when we
Mhm.
opened up E Plan and Mortgage like 7 years
Amazing.
ago. It's like, yeah, you
Right.
got to be a champion, pivot, and always step out on faith.
Now, I mean, have you thought about like what your end looks like?
Yeah. My ends looks like, well, actually, right now I'm actually walking into purpose. So my purpose is I just started a behavioral health program over in Baltimore, Maryland. That was
Nice.
an 18-month process. I'm waiting for my license for two more facilities. So,
Hmm.
like I said, 18 months. These two buildings, I have two residential and I have a commercial
Oh,
doctor's office.
wow.
So I'm waiting for that. I just purchased a property out here in Los Angeles. So I'm doing a behavioral health out here as well too, and I'm about to
Wow.
sign on a commercial building. So my
So
end is
you're
my.
buying and building businesses for
Mhm.
behavioral health, or right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so, but what about your mortgage company? You're going to let it go? You're going to keep it scaling? What's like your
Oh, no,
long-term
no, no, no,
plan?
no. So we met in Owners Club. So in Owners Club, with
Yeah.
Pace Morby, shout out to Pace
Hmm.
Morby. In Owners Club, he shows you how to teach you how to run your business like an owner. So in my mortgage company, I kind of turned into the marketing guy. So I don't do the day to day of the mortgages anymore. But
Nice.
if you needed a
Good for
mortgage done, if
you.
you need an SBA loan done, you would connect with me. You would reach out to me, and I would actually put you in a group text with one of my loan officers or even my partner, which
Amazing.
is Erica. And it's like, yeah, they handle all of that. I don't really
I
do the mortgages
love it.
anymore. So that
Do you know
allows
how
me to
rare
pick
that
up on
is?
faith.
No, but
Huh?
do you know how rare that is?
Yeah,
That was
it's
what was
definitely.
appealing for all of us in our
Mhm.
businesses. Now, I've been kind of working myself out of business for a while, but again, now I'm kind of back into it because sometimes things happen, right? The people you depend on. Now, I have candy stores, so I have like young staff. So when they
Yeah.
don't show up, right? And my manager quits, now all of a sudden I'm back in it. Or I had a partner who was earning in and she decided to leave after a couple of years. And then I had to go back in again. So, like, you're not
How big is the
even
staff?
as much. Hmm?
How big is the staff? So is it just is it one kid
Uh,
and one manager? Like how
so
big is
now
your
I
staff?
have 3 locations, and I've
Okay.
always, because I hire like transitory people, meaning kids that are growing up going to college, right? Leave for
Hmm,
college, come
hmm.
back for the summer. Maybe moms who are their kids are in school, right? Like that kind of. These are people that are not full time; they're part time, and their schedules always change, and
Yeah.
so you can't really rely. And I've had managers before, and then you give them all the hours and then they quit. And now you have nobody. You have nobody to do all the hours because you gave them all the hours. So I've kind of hedged on I'm going to have 10 or 12 at each location that
Hmm.
are going to like I'm going to have a few for day, a few for night and try to like work it. It doesn't
I
always
was
work
thinking that, yeah,
perfectly.
part time. Yeah, that's what I was thinking in my brain. I'm always
Yeah.
kind of thinking if somebody tell me something, how can I bring a solution to your problem? I would just say instead
Mhm.
of full time, even though you want more hours, let me work you up to those more hours. But let me always have a backup staff just in
Always.
case. Yeah, yeah,
18 years you learn the hard way, like,
yeah.
and so my highest I had 42 staff, which is a lot of people to manage,
Hmm.
um, and a lot of headache, restaurants specifically. But yeah, so now I have a couple locations, and now my newest, so I opened one in Charlotte in May. That's where I am today. And then I opened another, which was more creative. So I'm a
Hmm.
partner with somebody at their location. So I just put in like
Okay.
my candy store in a part of their business. And so we're going to do more of those because those are fast and easy and I don't have to worry about staff.
Yeah, that's
Um,
good.
and we're going to have a couple headquarters, right? One in each county around Charlotte. So that's kind of the plan. But yeah, I mean, like that's the reality. Is like over time you figure out. Now in your business, you probably have people that stay a little longer. They're paid a little bit more, or probably a lot more, but they're more dependable. And especially like you're building a culture, and they're going to be lifers, right? You hope. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
even still, they're not always lifers. But the reality is like in some like retail, people come and go. In restaurant, people come and go. And so you have to adapt to that. You also have to be more like McDonald's. You have to think about what's the lowest common denominator here? Like, how can I
hmm,
make it so simple that anybody walking in can do what I need them to do and do it right and consistently? And so that's a lot of my processes about like making sure the greeting or ringing up or how to scoop ice cream or whatever it is we're doing. And
yeah. To give
so
them SOPs.
it's a lot of work and it's a lot of headache too. But it's what I know, right? So I mean the big gamble is okay, kind of like that what was it called? Undercover Millionaire or whatever, where like Grant Cardone, they took him,
That's
they
what I was
dropped
thinking. I
him.
was going to say that when you said that, when you said I can just go anywhere and I can start over. That's why I was asking. Thinking really, you said just give me a cell phone and I'm good.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, because, I mean, for me, like in Charlotte, Charlotte's a city, right? I'm in New Hampshire, in a small town in New Hampshire. So it took a while for me, almost 8 months for before someone would even say yes to me
Mm,
renting a store. Because I'm
yeah.
this unknown commodity that's from somewhere else. Even though I have experience behind me, and proof, right, of concept, it's a
Concept.
risk for them because I don't live here. And so, and I'm not local and I'm not a big franchise or chain. And so I got the first and then I got the second. And now I'm about to open three others. I partnered with a guy who has ice cream stores. So
Hmm.
he wants to do it. We're going to do a rev share. I'm going to be in his. So now all of a sudden I could quickly have another five locations. So, but I'm playing, right? But it's that idea, right? It's
Yeah, yeah, that's
proving
smart.
the point that anybody can do it, especially I'm speaking to owners who've been in their business a long time. They're kind of they're in a grind or in a rut and they don't know what to do. That if I can do this, pick up everything, change the model, move somewhere else and do it in 2 years, you certainly could fix some things and be able to sell, right?
In a
Like
couple of months. Yeah.
it should be easy. And so that's kind of what I think it's really fun. And eventually what I'd like to do is be able to roll up candy stores because that's the idea here, right?
That's
So
the exit. The
10
whole is the
candy
roll up.
stores, 10 candy stores as opposed to one. You don't even have to be super profitable at all, but when you put them all together, they're worth more,
Hmm.
right? They're sharing resources, they're sharing warehouse, they're sharing inventory. You have some buying power.
What type of candy is it? You making me hungry over here.
All right. It's like, well, it's old fashioned candy store. So we all probably have those candy stores we went to when we were a kid that
Hmm.
we got bulk candy, or like when we went on vacation when we were a kid to the mountains or the beach, there was a candy store where you got something that you loved. And like, so it's that kind, old school, nostalgic.
What was
Um,
like what's those orange and you had those, it was the orange and white ones that look like a traffic cone. I forget
oh,
what those
candy corn.
are. Yeah,
You
yeah,
forgot
those.
candy
You
corn.
said old school, so you had me thinking, this all
I
I
know that
remember,
is
that's all
old
I can
school.
think
But
about.
like, think about it. How, okay, this is rude, but how old are you, Dana?
Huh, I mean, you tell me, everybody tell me
You
I'm
look like a
mature.
baby. You look
Thank
young.
you, man. Thanks, God is good. God is good.
All
I'm
right.
actually 46, but when I'm banging
Okay,
with like
would
a lot of
never
people
have
in the
guessed.
community, they tell me 29 and like 31 and
I would have
32. So I
guessed.
said,
I would have guessed
God is
that.
good.
So, but you know what? I'm 53. Okay.
Hmm.
And so the things from my
I thought you was
childhood,
35.
well, sure. That's why I have grandkids. Come on now. But you know what? Like the kid things from my childhood, like
Hmm.
I miss like candy cigarettes or wax bottles or wax lips or candy buttons, right? All of those bring back all those emotions, and I'm giving those to my grandchildren, right? It's that kind of a store where it's special, where you go for Christmas or Easter or Valentine's Day or just, because it's the first day of school or whatever. So, like, that's that kind of candy store. But we've slimmed down the model here
Hmm.
to make it efficient and more profitable in a place that's growing like crazy where they have money, right? Smarter,
Yeah, where is
as
growing like
opposed to
crazy.
where I was, where it was kind of dying, not so busy, that kind of thing. So, yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I mean, I would like to buy candy stores, I want to absorb them and pull them in. I
Hmm.
have this idea of the models I want to. So, I'm always on the hunt for that. I, but I'm launching the consulting for the last couple of years. I've been taking my time just trying to figure out how do you how do you get people who have a problem but don't know they have a problem to listen, right?
Yeah.
Most owners have no idea. So even some of my guys, we have our first 2-day class next month, and we've done like masterminds and stuff like that. We've done like annual consulting, but this is the first in person where we're going to plan your exit. We're going to plan what do you want. Most people have no idea what they want, right? Think about Owners Club and how long it took most people to figure out what they wanted for their Everest.
Oh
Like,
yeah, Mount Everest. Yeah, yeah. And we didn't even realize that year. I mean, it's coming up on a year, like just like
uh-huh.
that.
I
Time
mean,
flies.
and it took so long for people to figure out what do I even want? Same is true in business owners. They don't even know what they want. Like, what kind of exit do you want? But what do you want to do? What do you need to be able to do that? When, right? They have no idea. They just like later, right? So we help them to figure out what they want. We help them to figure out what their business is worth right now And again, these are not usually $1 million businesses. Like the
Mhm.
one of the ladies that I'm working with next this month, she's a $4 million revenue um, business.
Okay.
So she's profitable 4 or 500, which
Hmm.
is great. But
Yeah, like 10
she
percent.
um,
Okay.
but she wants to amp that up to be able to exit, right? And she wants it to continue. She doesn't want somebody to just take it, absorb it into theirs. She wants it to go. So like, but she's figuring out what she wants. She's figuring
Yeah.
out what it's worth right now, and then she's going to figure out who might want to buy this
What
and
type of
who
business is it? You might have a
it's a
buyer here.
recycling. It's a recycling, a specialized recycling business. Most recycling businesses do bulk. They just want a lot. And she's highly specialized. She goes to manufacturers. She's over in the Richmond, Virginia area. And but she'll go to manufacturers and she'll take, let's just say their copper or their whatever else. Like, and she then processes it. She's got all these equipment and then she also resells it, right? So she's highly specialized. And
Okay.
but she's like, "Okay, I want to be done in a couple years. What do I need to do now?" So she's got to figure out what she wants. She has to figure out what it's worth. She has to understand how it
Yeah.
works, like what
The
the
multiples and all
valuation
that
works.
stuff. Yeah,
And
yeah, the
then also
multiples.
who might want to buy it. She's got to identify and then so she can build for those people, whether that's an earn in, right? Whether that's an earn out, like whatever that, whether that she, one of the little tricks, and you probably know this already, but is to professionalize, right? You can go from a 1 or 2x to a 4 or 5x just by making it run without you.
Yeah, more efficiently. Yeah, your EBITDA, your employees. Yeah, like you said, because a lot of times, I know for me and my partners, when we buying something in the M&A space, we don't want to buy a job. It has to be a business that's already like
That's right.
running. We just come in, we put our SOPs and our systems and processes and see how we can actually do a value add to the
Yep.
machine that's already going.
Right. How can you fix it and you make it even more profitable, right?
Yeah,
Because a lot of them
basically.
haven't raised their prices in years. A lot of them are very inefficient, and that's the same is true. I'm picking on small business owners, but the reality is even in big corporations, they have redundancy. They have things that they've been doing for decades and they don't even know why they do them anymore, but they do them, right?
Yeah,
They have all kinds of things. They haven't raised prices. They don't even know what's working, and that's because the bigger it gets, the harder it is to maintain control. And you think being a small business, like, oh, well, they have it all together. They're all organized, but they're not. Nobody is really, because business is messy,
and
you know?
technology and things are always just changing all day, every day. So you got to actually be willing to have somebody that can actually put up with that change and actually have somebody that's boots on the ground and see what are the new innovations that's coming out.
That's right. And staying on top of it. But usually, I mean, think about it 30, 40 years, you're running your business. By that time, you've kind of at least made it work around you, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, what you like to do, what you don't like to do, right? You've kind of modeled it and molded it to your preferences, not necessarily the best of for the business and not necessarily keeping up with the times or the pricing or inflation, because you've just kind of gotten comfortable. You're in the role, you kind of know what to do. It's easy peasy. But when you want to sell, that is not the place to be. Now it's kind of like you have to be like when you started, right? You have to have a
Yeah,
plan. You have to like think, okay, and if you want to have that, I mean, let's be honest, most people in this country don't have retirement. This is their retirement.
it is your retirement. Yeah, your business or real estate, something like that is your retirement. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if they don't get sell, then what? Do they work forever? Do they wind up working at Walmart as a greeter? I mean, like what happens to them, right? And the worst part in my opinion is that the business just disappears from the world. You have this business that's been the cornerstone, let's just say of Main Street, just because that's more my
Hmm.
world, right? And they've been there for 40 years and then all of a sudden one day they're just gone. And like all their value just disappears.
Just dissipated. Yeah, just in a matter of a seconds. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's that, and so what do you do, right? And how can you make that not happen? And some people don't want to, and that's okay. But at least they're making that decision as opposed to by default.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then even for a particular seller like that, they would actually kind of be better off staying in a business for like an earn out, have somebody buy like at least 80% of the business, they stand there for
Mhm.
20%. So then
Yeah.
staying there for like a good year or maybe two and do like an earn out, and then the person who's getting it, they can actually kind of learn that process,
Mhm.
get a get a better understanding of the clientele they have, and that'd be a way for them to actually like have a smooth exit from that company.
Right. And again, is it hard to have a new partner? Sure. But do you want to be able to retire? Right? Sometimes it's that simple. Or what if you could be an owner, like we're talking about with Owners Club, right? Like if you were
Mhm.
the owner and you just kind of steer, right? You're kind of the front man. And what if everything else was taken care of? You had someone, fractional CFO come in, fractional COO, fractional CMO, whatever it is, right? And they're going to just take care of everything and put the right people in place, and then you can do the parts you like or not. Like, because
Yeah,
here's the thing: in 2 years with my candy store, if I'm cash flowing or making $1 million a year, do I want to sell? Right? Because if you're making that kind of money, why are you selling? If
yeah,
you
you gotta
worked
have a
yourself
plan.
out of the job, why
Yeah.
give up the benefit of what you've worked towards? So some of these owners may
Mm.
not even sell. You have to think about, like, the motivation is, well, I want to sell. Well, why? Usually it's, I'm tired of doing this, right?
Basically, yeah.
Right? I'm making too much money is not usually the reason, right? I have all this free time is not the reason, right?
Right, it's
I'm
kind of the
bored, so I'm
opposite.
just gonna sell it. Sure you are. Okay. Right. So, but I'm just saying, like, so the nicest part, in my opinion, is that as they come up with their plan, right? And they design where they're going. They define like when and what the target is, right? Let's just say it's
Hmm.
3 million in revenue, 20, 30% profit, like whatever it is. And
Yeah,
they design how to get there. By the time they're halfway there, they might think to themselves, you know what? I don't know if I even want to sell anymore. Right. And that happens.
it's always good to have that option though. So I mean, it is always good to have the option
Exactly.
to say, okay, I can sell if I want, but if
If you
not, I
want
can hold
to.
back. So that means you actually have a you have a good machine going on there.
Correct. And that's the thing. And they probably in 30, 40 years have never probably had a machine that's working
Hmm.
without them, right? Without them being the main push. There's a lot of people who have businesses and staff and outsource and do all the things, right? And it runs and they'll go on vacation, but they're, they can't leave for 6 months, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially if it's a job that you own, pretty much. So
Yeah,
tell me this. So do you have a real estate background, or were you
I
always
do.
intrigued? Okay, okay. All right, so talk to me. Tell me about
So
how you
I'll
started or
tell you,
got to where you
yeah.
at.
So I married somebody. I remarried in 2017, and he's a
Mhm.
builder. He's been a builder, and not like he's worked for a lot of different people. He's been GC, he's been all the things. But in the last few years, because this is what carpenters kind of do, is eventually they just kind of do their own thing and
Yeah.
they do it on their time. They make a lot of money and then they kind of take a week off. And then, like, this is kind of what they do. And so, but he's getting older and his body's not cooperating in the same way. Swing a hammer for 40 plus years, your shoulders start to hurt, right? Or you need
Yeah.
surgery or whatever, right? And so during COVID, he's also somebody he's never had to look for work because so and so recommended him to so and so who recommended him, right? 40 years, you got a good reputation, everyone's giving you business. But during COVID, when nobody was letting people in their houses and
Ooh.
everything kind of shut down for those first few months, all of a sudden he was like, what am I going to do? And I felt the same way with my restaurants. Like, what am I going to do? Right? All of a sudden, all the cash stopped. So we decided to build a tree house. That was always his dream, was to build like a tree house that he could rent on
Mhm.
Airbnb.
Yeah.
And we also did a midterm rental in our basement because we had this big house, just two of us. So we did
Okay.
this apartment in the
Okay.
basement. And so he did those things while he was home. In the interim, like all of a sudden I did have some PPP money and stuff like that. And I was like, what should we do? Like, and all of a sudden we started looking like, well, okay, what if you could work and do it in your time instead of
Hmm.
doing a job for someone, chasing jobs, right? Being on their roof and doing their siding and their windows and all the things. What if you did it for us
Yeah.
and you just could take your time, right? If if you had a bad day with your body, it's not the end of the world. So we bought our first flip house. Wrote a check in cash in Vermont, and we took I think about 6 months because he was also still finishing the tree house and the apartment all at the same time. He was
Oh
doing
yeah,
all
so you're all
three.
over the place. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And plus that was also the time where you couldn't really get supplies. Like two by fours went from $2 to $8. Like that,
Mhm.
this was the timing. But by the time we bought it, fixed it, sold it, it was about 6 months, but we doubled our money. I think we went in for 62 because it's
Mhm.
Vermont, it's a small town. Uh, we put 30 in, he did all the work, and we sold
Mhm.
for 185.
Okay, so you was hooked. Like, oh, okay, I
We were
like this.
like, okay, let's do that again.
Yeah,
That was
yeah, yeah,
fun. And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
and the next one we did was an auction. And that one we didn't have to do any work and we doubled our money like in 2 days. We just cleaned it out and sold it. And
Mm,
then
rich
another
man
one. So,
too.
like, we did that for a few years. We did four because, again,
Mhm.
keep in mind, he's doing the work. Um, and then he tore his shoulder. And so, we wound up in this Pace Morby world because he
Mhm.
couldn't swing the hammer for a while. He was having surgery and all that. And so we bought in and was like, let's maybe look at this real estate thing, not from a, I'm going to go do the job, but let's
Yeah.
look at it from an investing place, right? And so that's kind of how we wound up in this world. And I'm usually the one who takes care of all the paperwork. I'm the one who handles all the bills. I do all the signing. I do all the checks. I do all the hard money or loans, or I do all of that.
So like
And he
integrator.
goes
Okay.
out and does.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So cool team.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good team. And I'm doing my business stuff. Like, my intention was not to be focused on real estate. My intention was to continue to be focused on my businesses, and then take the extra and put it into real estate.
Oh yeah, yeah, and do it like that. I mean, truthfully, it does help like that as far as you really when you get the cash flow from the business, you are really supposed to get real estate with it because you either give it to Uncle Sam or you invest in real
Yes,
estate, in which
exactly.
is like you
Yeah.
kind of win it from two different ways, you know?
That's the idea. And so, but it took a little while and we didn't do a flip for about a year and a half. We just are finishing one now because he actually realized when he bought courses that he was like, I don't really want to sit behind a computer and learn. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do Zoom calls. I don't want to do that. He wants to go build stuff,
You want to do the thing, yeah, yeah. You want to be out and
which
about.
is fine. So that's how I wound up doing all this, right? And so I went to
Oh,
Squat Up, I joined Owners Club. And so, this has not been my main focus, but it's definitely a focus. And
okay,
so,
okay.
yeah, so I mean, but I love that there's business buying in here because what my hope
Mm-hmm.
is that by helping business owners to prepare to sell, I can also prepare them to be open to creative financing and then be
Yes,
able
yes.
to connect them with, 30,000 buyers in our community.
That's smart. I like that. Okay, that's a good plan.
Right. And so not only do they then have to go hire a broker or put it on the market or whatever, but what if you could just be introduced to people who are looking for your kind of business? And you've already been primed all along to be open to. It's like when you can explain what sub two is to the owner
Mm-hmm.
without the real estate agent in the room. And all of a sudden they're like, yeah, okay.
And you already
Versus
had a
all the
rapport. You already had a rapport. You already had a buy-in. You already had
correct.
all that. So it is going to be kind of easy because they
It's
see
going to
that
be
you
easy.
you brought
Yes.
value to them. And value is everything.
Exactly, exactly. And that's the other part is sometimes brokers um, are in the way. A lot of times they're in the way because they want to protect their seller from the
Hmm.
buyer. But as you know, those two people have to talk. How
Yeah,
can you take over the business if you don't talk to the seller? How can you make a wise decision and make decisions about what it is and where you're going if you never talk to the seller? You have to be able to be open and honest about what's real,
yeah.
right?
It has
And
to go
come
into
up with a plan.
it has to go into a safe pair of hands because when you're selling something, it's your baby. So you want to. It's not
Yeah.
always about the money. Somebody can offer you 800,000, and somebody can actually offer you 650, and the seller will actually give it to the one with the 650 because he knows it's a safe pair of hands, and it's going to
Mhm.
allow for the legacy to continue. So
Correct.
that's everything.
That's exactly right. And so it's opening the communication, whereas I find that agents sometimes are in the way, right? So if you just put them on the side and do it now, but also, prepping them for that, right? A lot of homeowners, let's just go real estate, a lot of homeowners would sell sub two if they really understood.
Stood it. Yeah.
right? They if they weren't scared instead of coming out of pocket, right, to be able to sell or whatever they're doing, right? And so it's just about awareness and education and being able to prepare people for the possibilities.
That's
And
everything.
that's
The
kind
more
of
options
like
the better.
my honor and I hope my privilege to be able to do for owners.
It's coming. I mean, one thing about life is once you speak something and you
Oh
walk
yeah.
into it, the power of manifestation has no choice but to happen.
That's exactly right. So this is actually, my and I think my case study for my candy store and proving it will
Hmm.
I think prove it really strongly, not only for myself, but also for owners. Sometimes when you feel so confident that something's possible, everybody will listen, right? But sometimes when you're still not 100% confident, like it could work or it could not work. That's life. I mean, sometimes you could think everything's going to work out and then it doesn't. That's reality. So I'm super excited to be able to talk about it on the way, right? To be
Hmm.
sharing, kind of still being in the pain of scaling again. Um, and then also be able to be an example of like what's possible,
And
right?
then this time, and then the beauty of it is you have a freaking great story, like you said, is your
Yeah.
credibility piece,
Do cool
your
shit.
track record. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You got that story behind it, so that's everything. So people are like,
Exactly.
okay, if she did it once, and like you said, you moved from here to there, and you did it again, she knows her stuff.
Yeah, she knows her stuff, and you know what? Then I also don't have to worry, right? Because I put 18 years into a store, the one that I have left. Restaurants are gone. The one candy store I have left, I had a
Mhm.
partner earned in. She changed her mind. I had to go back in, fix it. It's in a town that's dying. Well, I can't really. I tried ecom. I tried a lot of things, right? So it's kind of the writing's on the wall there. Do I
Yeah,
just bail? Do I give up? Or do I try to figure out a different way? And I'm definitely more optimist than pessimist. And
yeah.
um, right, because this happens, right? I mean, Kodak did not think they were going to be out of business, right? Blockbuster certainly didn't think they were going to be out of business. Like,
You're just saying about the technology and the times changing, and you got to be willing to
well,
change. And then you said the low, and that's the number one thing with even the business and real estate, because there's a business inside of real estate. So that's very important as well too. Is
yeah,
location,
absolutely.
location, location. So you said it's kind of in a location where it's though. So it's almost like even if you say it's going to make $1 million, and if the demographics doesn't support that, then it's kind of like
And how can you? Right.
basically,
And you have
yeah,
to have better
yeah,
parameters, right? Now, I built where I lived. Well, my kids are grown and gone. I don't have to live there anymore,
yeah.
right? Right? And that's kind of like the interesting part. And that's most business owners, right? There are ways, is the whole point of all of that, is there's a way. I
Hmm.
believe 100% there's always a way to make your business work, to sell it. If you can't sell it, then they'll make it so you don't have to work in it, right?
Yeah,
Maybe it
that's
just
what I'm saying.
continues on without you, but it doesn't have to die. You don't
Yeah.
have to take it apart and sell it for pennies on the dollar. That is not the answer, in my
That's not the
opinion.
answer right there. Yeah, because I mean,
Mm-mm.
somebody gonna want to buy. Like even when you guys got into your fix and flip, your first fix and flip. I
Yep.
mean, it might have been an ugly baby or whatever, but it's like somebody wanted it, so you had the vision for it.
Right.
So
There
even
was value
you think
there.
it's failing,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, somebody's going to see
Exactly.
that value, and what you see that's failing or doesn't have value, somebody else might come and look at it a different way and say,
That's right.
I can do something with this.
That's
My
exactly.
kids are growing up in a minute.
Well, and that's it. And you know what? Like that's the thing about businesses is once they disappear, they disappear. I mean, like
Yeah.
the house, and sometimes you have to tear down a house. Sometimes the best use is to take it apart and use the foundation and do start again, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes the best answer, or the easiest or fastest strategy is to repair, right?
Hmm.
Fix and flip versus tear down. Like, which one is it, right? If it's burnt down, it's probably a tear down, right?
Yeah,
I think
same strategy.
IO is like tearing down small bungalows and putting up duplexes, right? I think he's in your area. Think so. I
Yeah.
don't know. But
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah. No, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
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 I
yeah.
mean, but there's always a solution, is I guess my point, right? And there's value there, and there's value for the town. That's the other part that people forget about. Is like Does a chamber of commerce exist if there's no businesses? Does a main street exist if there's no
Mm.
businesses on it? Does a community exist? Who supports the booster club, Walmart or the local?
Everybody
See,
needs each
it's
other. Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. And so what do we do, right? Do you remember I mean, you're a little younger than me, but years ago when Walmart was trying to go into all these towns and people fought them because they were worried they were going to put everybody out of business. And in a lot of
Mhm.
places they did. I mean, that's just it
Kmart.
was what happened to happen, right?
Yeah, yeah. Kmart and Sears and all that good stuff.
But look who's out of business now, right? Like, I mean, it's cyclical. But the
Hmm.
reality is, if you're doing something specialty that can outlast, you're not going to compete on the same level. I'm never going to be able to compete with Walmart on price. Just not
Yeah.
going to be able to do it. And variety and suppliers and all the things. But that's a different game. That's not the game I'm playing.
Hmm.
Right? I'm offering something that's more specialty and community related and nostalgic and experiential, different. And so there's a way, right? But we both sell candy, just differently, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You see where was a need. So, I don't think. What is your IG? So we got it because this is a cool podcast. What is a way to anybody who's thinking about selling their business or somebody's like, man, I'm tired of working in this business all day, every day, and I just want to travel the world or something like that. How can somebody
That's
kind of get a
They
hold of
can
you or
reach
something like
me.
that?
So I'm the Tracy Gunn everywhere. That makes it
Hmm.
easy to find me. I have a YouTube channel, but we also have a business called Exitable. And
Hmm.
it's not a real word, but it's one that we patented and so or trademarked. And it's called, but it tells exactly what it is because everybody wants their business to be exitable. And that just means you don't have to do it all the time. That could mean selling, it could be sharing, it could mean just operating from a distance, right? Owning instead of operating. It could mean a lot of things, but the goal for most owners is to not be in it all the time. So that's the word, exitable. And so yeah, so that's I mean, and honestly, I'm like of the mind that even when you're starting, like I am
Mhm.
starting here, I have the knowledge, but I'm starting over from scratch, that even from the beginning, you should be thinking about what the finish line looks like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's almost like because you think about it, it's almost like when what's it like 100-meter race is like when you even going on a quick race, you always want to know what the finish line is. So you
Yep,
got to kind of
marathon, same thing.
yeah,
Like who
yeah,
starts a
same thing.
marathon doesn't know where you're going? Who doesn't have a map about what
Yeah,
the coordinates are? Where, right? I mean,
the
even in
navigation
the
system.
exactly. And so we all need a target and we all need kind of a date. I use this example a lot. Is like when you get engaged, when you get the ring and you celebrate and tell everyone you're getting married, until you
Hmm.
set that date, you're not getting married. There's nothing to
Oh,
plan for, right? It's just a promise that someday you're going to get married, right? But
that's
until
why
you set the date, then
so
you're
that's why
good.
my wife was like, "When is the date? When is the date? The
That's why.
date?"
Exactly. Well, I mean, but you know what? Then the timer starts and it
Yeah,
narrows in.
you break down everything and you set everything accordingly for that
That's
date
right.
right there, pretty
Right.
much.
So you can work it backwards. Like, okay, it's coming. If it's 5 years, then it's in 5 years. But it's definitely making it raises it to the level of awareness of like, I need to pay attention to this versus willy-nilly building shiny object, new, more, different, right? You become like myopic, like, oh, that's where I'm going.
I love it, man. I love it. So I'm gonna tell you, look, you're a true rock star, and that's what we do at the Legacy Builder Club. We
Love it.
always bring rock stars in it because we bring like a lot of real estate people. Now
Nice.
it's mergers and acquisition and business. So when you're building a legacy, you never want to put yourself in a box. You always want to have your options, like Tracy is doing. She's giving her sellers options. So follow her on IG and continue to follow and like and subscribe to the Legacy Builder Club.
Love
We
it.
prayerfully you guys love this episode.
Woohoo!
Thanks again, Tracy.
Thank you so much, and it was a pleasure. I really appreciate you giving me a chance to chat.
That's the business. That's what it's all about.
That's right.
Choo-choo.
Bye.
Bye.